Hey guys, and welcome to Should You Buy It, where all we do is talk a little bit about the game and whether or not we think it's worth the cost.
In this episode, we'll be playing Endzone, the strategy city building survival game in which you must build a thriving civilization hundreds of years after the nuclear apocalypse.
So the first question that we always cover in these videos is what stage of development is the game in? And in this case, Endzone A World Apart is in full release and available on PC for $24.
So what exactly is Endzone? Well, in Endzone, your primary objective is to build a thriving city that can not only feed its people, but also keep them happy and fend off invaders. You'll be doing all of this while you even go and try to explore the ruins of the old world.
First up, let's talk about the core city building aspects of this game. It is basically just like any other city builder you might have played in the sense that you must gather food and water in order to keep everyone alive. This is done through various different methods, from picking berry bushes to fishing in nearby lakes. In order to gather water, you will need to start off by simply placing some workers on your water collector job in order to get the ball rolling. As you progress, however, it starts to unlock many different ways that you can gather, such as wells or maybe rain collectors. The twist though is going to be the radiation, since you're living in the aftermath of a nuclear apocalypse.
Radiation in Endzone is clearly meant to be one of the more interesting mechanics in the game. Sadly though, it doesn't really play all that much of a role, so it won't be too much of an issue for you. Your only real fear is that if you don't provide your people with proper protective clothing, that your people will start to get radiation poisoning and slowly die off. This is super easy to counteract though, as just like most other games, you only need to keep them wearing proper equipment. There's also one additional mechanic with the radiation, and that is the rainfall. You see, it rains every so many days in the game, and each time it does, the rain can have different levels of toxicity. If the toxic rain gets into your rain collectors or your crops, then you will have toxic food, which will affect how sick your people become. That though is sadly where the radiation mechanic ends for the game, and it really just gives you a reason to make clothes and be wary of the rain.
Now the work system was pretty in-depth, which was nice to see since so far the game had been a bit unimpressive to us. You essentially can assign people to work whatever you want them to, assuming that you have the structures to accommodate said work. In other words, if say you had a refinery and want to refine materials, you can assign someone to that refinery to craft what you want. Luckily, there's something like 25 plus jobs that you're able to assign workers to, and you will definitely need all of them by the time you reach that mid to late game.
After that, the game crumbles down into a very generic city builder. Build houses for people to live in, give power to buildings to increase their efficiency, or even just water crops to keep them growing. The core mechanics of a city builder are certainly here, but they don't really innovate on the core aspects of one at all. Now there is one additional mechanic, but it's nothing too interesting. That mechanic is the ability to send out settlers to explore the nearby ruins of the old world. All this does is give you a way to increase your research capabilities and gather more resources.
One thing that the game did surprisingly well was its tutorial. Fair warning that the tutorial is very long, so if you are looking for a quick guide on how to play this game, you are kinda gonna be completely out of luck. To give you some perspective, it took something like 2 full hours just to complete it. Luckily, it was very informative and told you about mechanics that you wouldn't have even known existed without going through and reading the in-game wiki guide from top to bottom. The most exciting part of the tutorial for me, however, was easily the fact that the entire thing was voiced from start to finish. So if you are anything like me and don't play video games just to read virtual books, then this will certainly be something you will enjoy.
Let's get our settlers to a scrap and reproduce in this hostile environment and erect a water tower in its place. Very good.
So now let's move into the pros and cons section for the video. First up for the pros is that luckily this game has every core aspect that you would want in a city builder game. It has housing, worker management, happiness meters, and all the other fixins, which is really nice to see. Next up is that the tutorial was absolutely amazing and honestly probably one of the best parts of the game overall for us, and the fact that they even went out of their way to voice it was so nice to actually experience.
Now for the cons. First up, we have that the research system just feels very simplistic and without really any depth. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was nice that they had it, but there was not much to it as it only had about 20 things that were researchable in total. Secondly is that the game didn't innovate much around its primary system of radiation. I mean, you'd think for a game that's built in a nuclear apocalypse that they would go out of their way to make the radiation mechanics really cool or interesting or unique and different, but instead it ended up just being different ways to do different mechanics from other games that already were out there. Finally, for the cons is that the endgame was just really boring. I mean, no matter what I did, I kept getting this feeling of, oh, okay, I guess I'm just gonna grow my city. There was no missions really to complete as far as like an accomplishment, and then you start building a new city. It was just keep growing, and that's it. There was no goal to achieve or anything to really accomplish once you hit that endgame.
So now it's time for the rating for the game, and when we rate games, we want to get 1 hour of enjoyment out of every $1 that we spend on the game. So for this game in particular, in Endzone, we would want to get roughly 24 hours of enjoyment out of the $24 that we both spent. And after putting 24 played hours into this game, we give it 5 out of 10 potatoes.
Yeah, Endzone isn't a bad game. Sadly though, it is also not a great one. The game is definitely a well-done city builder that plays like almost every other city builder out there. It has one interesting new mechanic to play with, yet it doesn't seem to innovate on it much. Once you combine that with the lack of good endgame progression, it starts to become a bit of a coin toss whether or not you're going to get your full money's worth out of it. Personally, around hour 15 seems to be where most people start to feel like there's no good reason to really continue playing, so if you happen to see this game on sale at some point, it might be worth picking it up. Therefore, we feel it's safe to say that Endzone is a coin toss as to whether or not it's worth the cost.
Now, if you guys want more money-saving content, consider subscribing to our channel, where we release new videos every single week, where we spend the money so you don't have to. Make sure you guys smash that like button, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.